What does it mean to be invincible? To be invincible, kill or be killed. That's what it's all about, isn't it? Swimming in the middle of an ocean, one can never realize how vast it truly is. In this scene right here, we see Musashi prepare to assassinate Yagyu. But unfortunately for Musashi, a back scratcher descends from heaven to hit him in the face, incapacitating him completely. My sword is one with heaven and earth. Now, what the heck does this all mean right here? Well, I'm glad you asked, because this sequence right here is a microcosm of Vagabond. In fact, I would say that it's so crucial to understand this scene that without doing so, you're missing the entire point of the manga itself. Now, before we get into this, let's give a little brief history of Miyamoto Musashi. Now, Musashi is one of the main protagonists of Vagabond, and he just so happens to be a genuine historical figure that was considered one of the greatest swordsmen in all of Japan. Now, his journey in life began simply, to become the strongest samurai, nothing more, nothing less. To this end, he adapts an aggressive persona and lashes out against anyone who wishes to steal away his illusory title. But a mindset such as this creates an internal rot that one cannot shed so easily. Munasai, Musashi's father, was plagued by constant fear of being usurped by some new upstart. In fact, he saw his son more as a rival than an actual protege that he could influence positively. This is not to say that one with a hardened exterior cannot become a strong samurai. Look no further than Munasai or Ito for this. But with strength comes a price, and this comes in the form of an inflated ego, which undoubtedly burgeons an ever-growing shadow. And we see this manifest itself in Ito's fight with Musashi. In Carl Jung's words, it is a frightening thought that a man also has a shadow side to himself, consisting not just of little weaknesses and foibles, but of a positively demonic dynamism. The individual seldom knows anything of this. To him, as an individual, it is incredible that he should ever in any circumstance go beyond himself. But let these harmless creatures form a mass, and there emerges a monster. And each individual is only one tiny cell in the monster's body, so that for better or worse, he must accompany it on its bloody rampages, and even assist it to its utmost. In this sense, you can become a slave to your own shadow. So you see, Ito's shadow has grown to such an extent that it has subsumed him. He summons up personal rage to blind his fear, and he disparages those who embody that which he lacks. He becomes narrowly focused on attaining some arbitrary number of power, rather than reconciling his own inner turmoil. He effectively becomes divorced from reality itself, embodying the dark demon in full. And for Musashi, he is looking into a literal mirror. He idolized Ito's destructive nature. He wanted to become invincible, but as he later notes, unrivaled is a heat haze, an illusion created by the ego. Fear serves to disassociate the ego from the heavenly world that surrounds us. It is from this perspective that one can see the leaf being a part of the tree, and the tree being a part of the forest. This is how one sees the shadow as a part of the psyche, and learns to integrate it rather than differentiate it. Now, it comes with much struggle. It doesn't happen overnight. But over the course of the manga, Musashi does this quite beautifully. It's actually poetic in a way. And this happens when Musashi uses his sword to create a whirling stream of water around it. Now, Jung identified water as a potent symbol for the unconscious. He would go on to say, the facts of nature cannot in the long run be violated. Penetrating and seeping through everything like water, they will undermine any system that fails to take account of them. So in this way, we cannot argue the shadow out of existence. We as humans have a psyche, and part of that psyche is the shadow. It serves a useful purpose, but at the same time, it is quite destructive. And what Jung is trying to say here is, we can't argue it out of existence. We can't pretend that it doesn't exist. We have to understand that it exists, and we have to find a way to become compatible with it. We have to see it as a necessary component of the whole. And Musashi's time cultivating the farmland was an exercise in his own psychological development. Because like shadow integration, one must go through the necessary steps to arrive at the desired result. I shall not give up. I am one with the earth. In this example, we can associate the soil with the depths of our soul, the depths of the unconscious. For as Nietzsche said, the tree that would grow to heaven must send its roots to hell. But it's by no means an easy process, as the shadow will attempt to sabotage you at the first sign of resistance. Enough. Let's give up. It's a burden we shouldn't have carried on our shoulders to begin with. Let's return to our world. But to bloom into the person that we ought to become, We must strive on, through the hellish parts of our unconscious, to be born anew. Much like the crops in the field, they must quote-unquote die in the dirt to sprout up with new life. In a moment where Musashi becomes one with his hoe, much like his sword, he thinks, "The hell is this?" And that's the point. Shadow integration is a hellish process, but that doesn't mean we can't still smile. I'm reminded of the story of Sisyphus pushing the boulder up the mountain. Now, Sisyphus is punished by the gods to push a boulder up a mountain endlessly for the rest of his days. And it's sort of akin to the process of shadow integration and building ourselves up through our psychological development. Because like Sisyphus, we are constantly growing and improving our souls. And it's an endless process. We have to do it day after day after day. It's tough and arduous, but it's worth it in the end. And even though it's laborious work and it takes time, the struggle itself toward the heights is enough to fill a man's heart. One must imagine Sisyphus happy, and we ourselves must also be happy. The green laughs, the people laugh too, feeling the connection with life. To be one with heaven and earth is to take things as they come, to accept new situations and to accept the shadow as an ally, rather than become subservient to it and become a weapon of total destruction. Like Kojiro, you must accept the way. And to do this, you have to get out of your own way and stop trying to force things. Musashi, for much of the manga, unnecessarily sabotaged himself by striving for some worthless ideal. And upon realizing this, the world opened up to him, and he began to see the weaknesses and fears of other men. And I think it's also very poetic that Musashi and Kojiro were trying to use their sticks to pierce through the snow. Because if we think about it, if water represents the unconscious, and snow's just the solidified version of water, then really what Musashi and Kojiro are doing here is piercing through their own unconscious, is entering into those deep layers, metaphorically speaking, of course. And it's no surprise that Kojiro gets very deep. He has a very intimate understanding of his unconscious. He is very in tune with his own emotions and natural drives. Whereas Musashi at this point in the story was more in tune with his anger and his fear. And that's why he had difficulty getting through the snowman at first. And this ultimately is the point of being one with heaven and earth. You have to understand that you just can't win battles through strength alone. You have to assess the situation. You have to look at the environment. You have to look at the person in front of you. Understand their weaknesses. Take advantage of what they give you, rather than forcing a situation that might not be there. And then, that's when things open up. And that's why people like Kami Izumi and Yagyu and Ine were such proficient swordsmen. Not only because they had the strength and the skill, because they had the mastery of mind. And I think it's pretty clear to see that Takehiko Inoue portrayed this in a very beautiful and symbolic way. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you on the flip side.